wise man is never less alone than when he is alone. Part 1. The question of self-worth. Take a breath and imagine for a moment. You've spent your life trying to be enough for a world that never learned to see you. You shaped yourself to fit the eyes of others, bending your truth to earn their acceptance. You smiled when your spirit trembled, spoke gently when your heart wanted to scream, and carried the weight of expectations that were never born from your own soul. You wore masks made of approval, chased applause from faces you didn't even recognize, and somewhere along that endless chase, something inside began to fade. The louder the world became, the quieter you grew. Until one day, in a silence too heavy to ignore, a question appeared. Who am I when no one is watching? Was this all a search for belonging, or a slow forgetting of myself? Many centuries ago, Michel de Montaigne pondered the same ache within the human heart. He discovered that peace doesn't come from conquering the world's noise, but from stepping away from it. That wisdom is not the art of knowing more, but the courage of letting go. True freedom begins when you no longer live as a reflection of others' opinions. When solitude stops feeling like emptiness and begins to feel like truth. To be alone and yet not lonely, that is the mastery of self. When you no longer perform to be seen, when you no longer chase worth in the eyes of others, you begin to taste what it means to be whole. So, if these words echo somewhere deep inside you, take it as a quiet reminder not to run faster, but to return inward. The journey back to yourself doesn't begin with movement. It begins when you finally stop running. Part 2. The philosophy of Michel de Montaigne. In an age ruled by noise, ambition, and endless motion, there lived a man who chose stillness. Michel de Montaigne, ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in thought, possessed the rare strength to slow down when the world demanded speed. While others chased crowns, titles, and fleeting glory, he turned away from the crowd and walked toward solitude. In the quiet of his study, behind walls untouched by the chaos of politics and pride, he began the greatest journey a human can take, the journey inward. Montaigne wasn't searching for victory or fame. He sought something infinitely more difficult, the art of living honestly with oneself. In a society obsessed with reputation, he dared to ask, can a person remain true in a world built on pretending? He realized that the deepest human pain isn't failure, it's forgetting who you are while trying to please everyone else. From that realization came a simple yet eternal truth. Life begins only when the performance ends. Montaigne's wisdom didn't shout through lecture halls or wear the heavy armor of intellect. It whispered softly, like an old friend saying, release it, release the masks. Release the expectations that suffocate your soul. Release the fear that you must earn love to deserve peace. He understood that the tighter you cling to what the world demands, the further you drift from what your heart needs. Real peace isn't found in control, it's found in surrender. Real success isn't in applause, it's in authenticity. Real freedom isn't granted by others, it's reclaimed from within. Montaigne reminded us that perfection is a mirage, and control is a dream that dissolves upon touch. To live truthfully is to accept imperfection without shame. You don't need to impress, you don't need to perform, you only need to return to yourself. And when you finally stop running, when you stop measuring your worth through borrowed eyes, something miraculous unfolds. A quiet kind of freedom. Unpolished, unseen, the art of not but powerful enough to shift the entire axis of your life. Let's make one thing clear. When I speak of letting go, and when Montaigne spoke of releasing excessive concern, it was never an invitation to become careless or cold. Indifference is not wisdom. Not caring does not mean closing your eyes to life or turning your back on responsibility. It isn't about apathy, it's about awareness. The kind of not caring Montaigne revealed is quiet strength, disguised as calmness, a deliberate choice to guard your peace by focusing only on what truly deserves your attention. It is the art of choosing what deserves your energy and what does not. You still love, still strive, still create, still show up, but you no longer kneel before every opinion. You no longer waste your breath, explaining yourself to those who have already decided not to understand. You no longer shrink to fit shapes that were never meant for you. You act out of conviction, not approval. You live guided by purpose, not applause. And with that understanding comes a gentle acceptance. Some will misjudge you, some will envy you, some will leave, and you let them, with grace. Like autumn leaves detaching quietly from their branches, you learn to release without resentment, because your worth was never a vote to be cast by others, it was always an inheritance from within. You begin to live in rhythm with your own heartbeat, instead of marching to the restless noise of the crowd. In that stillness, a new kind of strength awakens, a strength that does not demand to be seen, does not require validation, does not crumble under silence. You start to breathe easier. Your choices grow cleaner. The fog of confusion lifts, and slowly, life stops feeling like a battlefield and begins to feel like a path. A path that no longer demands perfection, only presence. Ironically, this calm detachment, the very state that asks for no recognition, makes you more magnetic, more reliable, more powerful. People sense authenticity. They are drawn to it like warmth in winter. You no longer chase acceptance, and yet it finds you naturally. That is the paradox Montaigne understood. The moment you stop performing, the world finally sees the real you. And that, in truth, is the highest form of freedom. Part 4. The cycle of inner suffering. Before we can ever taste true freedom, we must have the courage to face what keeps us bound, the quiet, merciless cycle of inner suffering. Montaigne understood this long before our time, that most chains are not forged by the world, but by our own minds. We are not trapped by walls, but by fears we dare not name. The fear of being judged. The fear of being abandoned. The fear that if we stop performing, the world will forget we exist. And so we try to please everyone, even when it costs us ourselves. That fear becomes a silent master, drawing us into an endless loop of self-betrayal. We start to bend where we should stand. We say yes when every fiber of our being whispers no. We swallow truth to remain likable. We smile when our souls ache for honesty. Piece by piece, we trade inner peace for small tokens of approval, temporary applause, shallow praise, false belonging. And without realizing it, we become wanderers in our own lives, begging for validation from those who barely see us. The more we reach for their acceptance, the emptier we feel. The more we cling, the more we lose. The more we chase, the further we drift from who we truly are. Montaigne saw this clearly. Our deepest pain does not come from the cruelty of others, but from the permission we give it. We let opinions rule our hearts. We let rejection define our worth. We let indifference erase our spirit. But there is a way out. If, as you listen, you recognize that same loop within yourself, know this: you can stop. You can step out of it right now. Look inward and say, my worth does not depend on the eyes that see me. It lives in the heart that knows me. In that single realization, something begins to shift. A quiet light enters. You breathe easier. The weight loosens. You start to walk lighter, not guided by the gaze of others, but by the integrity of your own heart. And perhaps that is how real change begins, not with grand declarations, but with a single honest choice to stop living as a shadow of others' approval. When you choose yourself, you not only set yourself free, you also become a small spark of hope for someone still searching in the dark. Because sometimes, one genuine story, one quiet act of honesty, is enough to awaken a soul frozen by the coldness of this world. Part 5. The power of letting go. When you finally find the courage to step outside that loop of suffering, something remarkable begins to stir within you. A quiet, unshakable strength. The strength of letting go. You start to see that the things you once clung to, praise, attention, validation, were never possessions, only passing reflections. They drifted through your life like clouds across the sky, beautiful for a moment, then gone with the next wind. They were never meant to be held, only witnessed. And the day you stop trying to grasp them, life begins to breathe again. You no longer crumble under every opinion. You no longer shrink at every rejection. You stop wasting your spirit chasing things that were never yours to keep. Instead, you turn inward and begin to build something real yourself. The time once spent clinging becomes the soil where your soul grows. You start creating, loving, and living not to be seen, but simply because it feels alive. And then, a strange paradox reveals itself. When you no longer seek to be admired, you become radiant. When you stop fighting for control, life begins to align itself with you. Doors open without force. People appear who feel like home. Paths unfold not because you push, but because you trust. This is not luck, nor magic, it is the rhythm of life itself. Montaigne understood this centuries ago. The more you hold on, the more you lose. The more you release, the more life flows toward you. To let go is not to give up. It is to stop standing in your own way. Think about it. The most beautiful moments in your life, love, laughter, creativity, peace, didn't arrive through control. They came in the spaces where you allowed things to simply be. That is the quiet miracle of surrender. Letting go is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the choice to stop wrestling with what was never meant to be restrained. And if in this moment you feel that call to release what's been too heavy, then let this be your turning point. Whisper to yourself, I am ready to let go. I am ready to live free. Because every time a single soul chooses freedom over fear, it lights the way for others still trapped in darkness. Together, those small lights form something vast, a space where inner freedom is not an idea, but a way of being, a living breath of peace. Part 6. The Miraculous Reverse Effect. When you truly learn to release your grip on life, something remarkable happens, not with noise or spectacle, but in quiet, invisible ways. There are no grand signs, no sudden flashes of destiny, only a gentle shift, almost imperceptible at first. The chaos begins to soften. The things not meant for you start to fade without resistance. The doors that were never yours quietly close, and the ones that belong to you open with effortless grace. People who were only passing chapters drift away. The right ones, the genuine ones, remain or return naturally. You stop chasing affection and discover that love no longer needs to be pursued, it flows toward you unforced. You stop fearing loss because you understand that what is real can never be taken. You stop trying to control every outcome, and in that surrender, life starts to breathe again. There's a rhythm that begins to reveal itself, a calm order beneath all uncertainty. Opportunities appear when you're not hunting for them. Inspiration blooms when you've stopped demanding brilliance. Joy visits not because you've forced it, but because you've made space for it to exist. Montaigne saw this truth centuries ago, that happiness and peace cannot be seized, they must be allowed. Like flowers, they unfold only when untouched. The less you resist, the more life reveals its grace. When you stop obsessing over success, your work becomes purer, born of devotion rather than fear. When you stop fearing failure, you dare greater things, and courage replaces anxiety. When you no longer need validation, your self-respect roots itself deep, unshaken by storms. And from that soil, your life begins to bloom not in noise, but in quiet brilliance. You find that you no longer need to chase what is already moving toward you. You no longer grasp, yet everything begins to arrive. That is the quiet power of letting go, the paradox that by loosening your hold, you finally receive what was meant for you all along. So if you feel this truth stirring within you, let this moment mark your decision to live differently. Whisper to yourself, I will allow life to unfold in its own rhythm. Because in that simple act of trust, you become part of the natural harmony that has always been guiding you, and your calm becomes the light that helps others find their own way home. Part 7. The Key to Freedom. Letting go at the right time. There is a truth so simple yet so hard to live by. Not everyone is meant to stay, not everything deserves to be held, and not every chapter is meant to last forever. The real key to freedom isn't found in how tightly you can hold on, but in the wisdom to release when the time comes. Montaigne understood this long ago. Most people spend their lives gripping what has already withered. A love that's lost its warmth, a dream that no longer fits who they've become, an expectation long expired. And it's not the loss that breaks us, it's the clinging. To let go at the right moment is not weakness, it's the highest form of courage and self-respect. You release not because you're tired, but because you understand some things must end so better ones can begin. Think about it, how many times have you fought to keep someone or something that was already slipping away, only to realize later that the struggle wounded you more than the loss itself? We are taught how to chase, how to fight, how to keep, but rarely how to release. Yet, that is where true power lives. De Montaigne taught that letting go isn't about losing, it's about reclaiming yourself. You reclaim your calm, your clarity, your right to move forward unburdened. You make space for new light to enter. Because sometimes, it's the moment you finally stop forcing life, that everything you've been waiting for quietly finds its way to you. So, if there's something heavy sitting in your chest, know this: you are standing before a sacred threshold, the beginning of your own freedom. Whisper to yourself, I am ready to let go of what no longer serves me. Say it not in sadness, but in strength. And remember, the greatest power is not always in fighting harder, it's in knowing when to release, when to trust, and when to let the universe carry what no longer belongs in your hands. Part 8. Applying it to relationships. If you believe the art of letting go applies only to your inner world, Montaigne, or as de Montaigne echoed, would simply smile and remind you. Freedom reveals its truest form only when practiced in love itself. We often love with closed fists, expecting others to fill the empty spaces within us. We build silent contracts in our minds. They must act this way. They must never leave. They must love me exactly as I imagine. But this grasping slowly poisons what was once pure. Love, when tied with expectations, begins to suffocate. We stop seeing the person before us and start loving the idea we've created of them. It's no longer affection, it becomes control. No longer connection, it becomes fear. True love, Montaigne understood, is never about holding someone captive. It's about setting them free. You love them as they are, without reshaping them to soothe your insecurities. You allow them space to breathe, to change, to exist in their own truth, and in doing so, you too are freed. Think for a moment how much heartache comes from trying to turn someone into your reflection. How many disappointments grow from expecting others to live by the unwritten scripts in our minds. Every soul is like a flowing river meant to move, not to be confined by the walls of our need. When you let that river run freely, love transforms. It matures from possession into companionship, from demand into devotion. It stops fearing loss and begins to celebrate connection. You start to love not because you need them, but because you honor them. And if right now, someone in your life calls for that kind of release, let it be an act of courage, not absence. Letting go doesn't mean you've stopped loving. It means you love deeply enough to stop controlling. Whisper to yourself, I choose to love through freedom, not possession. Because real love doesn't chain, it walks beside you. It doesn't demand, it understands. It doesn't hold tightly, it trusts. Part 9. Success. Born from detachment. There comes a moment when you finally see one of life's quietest truths. Real success is never born from clinging, it grows from detachment. Strange, isn't it? We were raised to believe that if we desire something enough, we must chase it relentlessly, grip it tightly, refuse to ever let it go. Yet, Montaigne saw through that illusion. He understood that the tighter we hold on, the smaller our world becomes. The more we try to control, the more we strangle what could have grown freely. The more we fear losing, the more we build our lives upon fear itself. And where fear lives, freedom fades, and with it, the light that makes life worth living. The detachment he spoke of is not coldness, nor apathy. It is a refined way of being where you can love deeply, work passionately, and strive with all your soul, yet remain untouched by obsession. You still plant your seeds with care, but you no longer command the seasons to bloom on your schedule. You still give love, but you do not demand it to mirror yours. You still create, contribute, and serve, but not for applause, not for validation, simply because creation itself is your nature. And in that state of calm independence, something magical happens. You stop chasing, and life starts finding you. You no longer attract because you are trying to be special. You attract because you are finally at peace. Opportunities begin to drift your way. The right people appear. Success, love, and inspiration all flow toward you, not because you demanded them, but because you made space for them to arrive naturally. True abundance cannot be hunted or forced. It arrives where there is room to breathe. It visits the soul that stands tall and steady in its own presence, not begging, not gripping, simply allowing. If these words resonate somewhere deep within you, pause for a second and whisper, I choose detachment, not as escape, but as freedom. Because once you stop forcing life to happen, you finally let life come to you easily, gracefully, and in perfect time. Part 10. Letting go to live more deeply. When you finally learn the quiet art of letting go, something profound dawns upon you. Life was never your enemy. It was never against you. The storms you felt were not punishments, but the echoes of your own attachments, expectations, and fears. It wasn't the world that hurt you. It was the weight you refused to release. To let go is not to stop loving, nor to abandon your dreams, nor to give up on growth. It means you choose not to carry what no longer belongs to you. You stop holding the past hostage. You stop trembling before the future. You stop trying to control what was never yours to command. You begin to live with an open heart, a lighter soul, and eyes wide enough to see beauty even in imperfection. You love not to fill a void, but to share your horizon with another free spirit. You work not to prove your worth, but to pour your devotion into something meaningful. You live each day not as a calculation of gain or loss, but as a sacred chance to be here fully, deeply, freely. And in that gentle awareness, the world begins to unfold its hidden wonders. You hear the music in silence. You notice the grace of a passing breeze. You find warmth in a stranger's glance. You begin to see that the smallest things, a word, a smile, a sunset, hold immeasurable depth when you're no longer rushing through them. Montaigne once showed us that letting go does not take life away, it gives it back. It returns to you the ability to feel again, to see again, to live again. And from that point on, everything becomes richer. Every conversation lingers. Every quiet moment feels sacred. Even a single step under the same sky feels like gratitude turned into motion. If your heart whispers that it's time to live lighter, to live deeper, listen to it. This is your moment of beginning. Whisper to yourself, I let go to truly live. Because every small act of release today plants the seed for a freer, more awakened tomorrow. It was the weight you refused to release. To let go is not to stop loving, nor to abandon your dreams, nor to give up on growth. It means you choose not to carry what no longer belongs to you. You stop holding the past hostage. You stop trembling before the future. You stop trying to control what was never yours to command. You begin to live with an open heart, a lighter soul, and eyes wide enough to see beauty even in imperfection. You love not to fill a void, but to share your horizon with another free spirit. You work not to prove your worth, but to pour your devotion into something meaningful. You live each day not as a calculation of gain or loss, but as a sacred chance to be here fully, deeply, freely. And in that gentle awareness, the world begins to unfold its hidden wonders. You hear the music in silence. You notice the grace of a passing breeze. You find warmth in a stranger's glance. You begin to see that the smallest things, a word, a smile, a sunset, hold immeasurable depth when you're no longer rushing through them. Montaigne once showed us that letting go does not take life away, it gives it back. It returns to you the ability to feel again, to see again, to live again. And from that point on, everything becomes richer. Every conversation lingers. Every quiet moment feels sacred. Even a single step under the same sky feels like gratitude turned into motion. If your heart whispers that it's time to live lighter, to live deeper, listen to it. This is your moment of beginning. Whisper to yourself, I let go to truly live. Because every small act of release today plants the seed for a freer, more awakened tomorrow. Part 11. The ultimate truth, living as the art of acceptance. When you have wandered far enough along the winding path of self-discovery, you arrive at a quiet, luminous realization that to live is to accept. Not with surrender born of weakness, nor with the sigh of defeat, but with the calm understanding of one who has awakened. True acceptance is not resignation. It is the art of seeing life as it truly is, imperfect, unpredictable, yet profoundly whole. It is the gentle wisdom that whispers, nothing is missing, even when much is gone. You begin to accept that you cannot command the tides of existence. That loss, rejection, and unfulfilled dreams are not failures, they are the natural rhythms of being alive. You understand that not everyone will stay, not everyone will understand, and not everyone is meant to walk beside you. And in that quiet acceptance, a deep peace descends, not loud, not triumphant, but still and sacred. Like the final light of dusk filtering softly through the forest, you stop resisting the way things are. You stop wrestling with what should have been and begin to dance gently with what is. You no longer curse the broken pieces. You begin to see beauty in their scattered arrangement. You stop chasing every answer. You learn to rest within the questions. You discover that life was never meant to be solved, only experienced, deeply and openly. And in that surrender, something miraculous happens. Life starts to meet you halfway. The right people appear without searching. Quiet joys begin to bloom in unnoticed corners. Peace flows into the spaces once filled by struggle. Montaigne saw this truth long before us, that happiness does not arise from conquering the world, but from embracing it as it is. That freedom is not the power to control, but the grace to allow. Living, then, is not a battle against the current, but a soft opening of the heart to everything the current carries, its chaos, its beauty, its fragility, its strength. If you feel a gentle shift inside you now, a soft loosening in your chest, let this be your sign. Whisper to yourself, I accept life in its imperfect perfection. Because in the end, acceptance is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of true peace, where you and life finally move in rhythm, not as enemies, but as one. Conclusion, the greatest lesson. When you finally reach the quiet end of this long inward journey, you will see the truth that was waiting for you all along. The greatest lesson in life is not about mastering control, nor about winning every storm. The true art of living lies in knowing when to release, when to accept, and how to remain free amid all that you cannot command. Michel de Montaigne never offered a formula for triumph, nor a roadmap lined with certainty and comfort. What he left us instead was something far more precious, a compass pointing toward inner liberation. A kind of freedom untouched by praise or possession, a freedom no power can give you and none can ever take away. It is the quiet freedom of a soul that whispers, I do not need the world's approval to know my worth. I do not need control to walk in truth. It is the calm strength of a being who can stand steady in chaos, smile through endings, and move forward without bitterness, without despair. And in that way of living gentle, unforced, unshaken, you don't merely endure life's storms, you begin to truly live. You touch each passing moment with gratitude instead of grasping, with peace instead of fear. That is the silent miracle of letting go. It does not remove sorrow, but it removes your chains to it. It does not promise a life without waves, but it gives you the depth to move with them, not against them. If even now you feel a lightness stirring in your chest, a quiet whisper that says, yes, I am ready to live more freely, hold on to that feeling. It is the beginning of everything. Whisper it to yourself as a vow. I choose freedom. I choose presence. I choose to live fully. Because sometimes, the smallest act of surrender, a breath, a word, a promise to trust, is all it takes to open a new chapter of your life. And remember this, you were never meant to control life to be loved by it. You were only meant to open your hands, soften your heart, and see that life has loved you quietly, patiently, completely from the very beginning.